Welcome back to the Sunshine Travelers podcast. Today is the third part in our series on our trip to Africa, and we're diving into something that goes beyond any single destination or adventure. We're talking about seizing those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, the kind of experiences that come knocking only once and leave a lasting mark on your life. Whether it's a safari across the African savannah, trekking through ancient ruins, or finally booking that dream getaway you've always thought about, sometimes life hands us a golden ticket to go beyond the ordinary. In today's episode, you will discover stories and unforgettable moments that came from saying yes to the trip of a lifetime. I'm Scott.
And I'm Melissa.
And we're the Sunshine Travelers. Our passion is travel and sharing our experiences with those who enjoy it as much as we do, for those who want to learn more about travel, or even those who just want to live vicariously through our travel stories. No matter where you fall along that journey, get ready to hear about our first-hand experiences as we visit some of the most interesting and amazing places on Earth. Today we are honored to be joined by a couple of experts on this topic. Our aunts Brenda and Rita recently joined us in Kenya for the safari portion of our trip. We'll dig into their stories a little later, but please join me as we welcome them to the show. Today we're joined with my two lovely aunts, Brenda and Rita, and they recently joined us on this trip where we went on the safari, and so we're happy to have them on the episode and to help us as we're talking about taking this trip of a lifetime. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
First of all, start out by telling us the story of when you decided to say yes to this trip of a lifetime. Because I love the story of how we got onto this trip.
You were at your mother's house, I think, weren't you, Scott?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was last Christmas sitting at her kitchen table. I think we were playing cards or something like that.
Yeah.
And you, Scott, you and Melissa started talking about your trips that you had taken. And I was like, y'all need to let me know when you're going on these trips because I want to go with you. And so that's when you said, well, we have a trip to Africa coming up if you want to go. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so you said, no, I'm not kidding. We do. We're planning a trip. I just kind of mulled that over in my mind for a little bit. And then I said, these two young kids don't want
these old women
going with them on a trip. So I kind of voiced that. And you said, yes, we do. It would be fast. Y'all need to come with us.
Just for everyone listening, these are the fun two, right? We have a blast when we're together.
Well, and not to mention, even then, like we were staying up till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, playing cards and,
right.
just hanging out and
hanging out. Yes.
So, whenever we just kind of started talking about it a little bit, my husband, Jerry, and I, we had always said we wanted to go on a safari, but it just didn't ever work out. He had business trips that he had to go on. And so, we just never got around to the safari thing. So whenever Scott said, yes, we would like to do that. Y'all need to come with us. I just kind of sat there for a little bit and kind of mulled it over. And I told Brenda, I said, we could go. And what did you say? I can't go to Africa.
I can't go to Africa.
I said, yes, we can. It's almost a year away. We can start saving up our money and everything. And so then by the time it comes around, we'll have it all paid for. And so that's what we did.
Yeah, Brenda, so
And
you...
I kept calling Scott and Melissa saying, are you sure that you want us to go with you?
Yeah, so as a little background, we were planning this. Part of it was our 30th wedding anniversary this year. And then, of course, I have a big birthday coming up later this year. And so she's like, you don't want us to come and crash that party. And it's like, yes, we do. We want to have fun. We want to laugh. But Brenda, you had kind of a similar story where this is something you had talked about at one point in time, but just never did it, right?
Right. But it was kind of way back in my, it was way back in my bucket list. So, but I'm glad it turned out like it did, because I just it was so much fun.
Well, good. I mean, and so what we're kind of talking about today is you had this opportunity for a trip of a lifetime and you said yes to it. And so
let me just interject this one thing. And we didn't want to go for 2 weeks by ourselves.
Right.
So because we could go with you two, then we felt more comfortable about going on this long trip, because the most either one of us, I guess, had ever been away at, one period of time was 1 week.
Right.
much less, going for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, we couldn't talk y'all into the full 3-week experience with us.
No.
But it's not something, so it's like, here's the opportunity. So it's not something that you would say, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll do this next year. We can plan it on our own and we'll do it. It's like, this is the opportunity to do this.
No, this was the opportunity because we had fantastic people taking care of everything. I mean, from when we arrived, well, maybe you don't want me to talk about that yet, but from the point of arrival until we left to come back home, we had somebody taking care of us, picking us up, taking us to where we needed to go. It was awesome the way that the travel agent or whatever you call them.
McKay Africa. Yeah.
Yes.
McKay Africa. Yeah.
The way that they had everything planned out and took care of us all through the trip.
They were always right there when they were supposed to be.
But let's back up for a second and talk about the anticipation of waiting for this trip. What that was like. It was about, so it's about a year, but it was about 10 months, right? So by the time you decided to join us, what went through your mind later that night and then the next few days is you're like, wow, we've said yes, we're going to go on this trip. What kind of went through your mind?
First of all, after Brenda and I talked by ourselves without anybody else around, we were like, are we crazy? Have we lost our ever-loving mind?
At our age and our...
And, I had been having some back problems and, I have all of these other health issues. After we left you guys, I was like, can I do this? Can I actually do this?
Of course, I always take care of her, see, so.
Yes.
When we go on trips, I take care of her.
She's a little bit older than me, but, I have more health issues than she does.
Right.
And so she ends up taking care of me instead of me taking care of her. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both, though. We take care of each other.
Yeah, we do.
But
we had a lot of calls, in between that time, and really in the next few days, we had, some telephone conversations, around kind of what does this look like, and what again are all the details? And so we went through a lot of that over the next few days. But I think that really then starts to build on some of the anticipation of waiting for the trip.
Oh, it did. It did.
And we thought that you guys were going to be like packed in the next week
Yeah.
and ready to go. And so then, Brenda, you wanted to mention, I think, like about your knee replacement surgery, and just like maybe share just a little bit about how that like.
Well,
impacted.
I wanted to be able to walk good, by the time. So I went ahead. I got the doctor to schedule my surgery as soon as possible. So I had it April the 19th, and my therapy, that was my, what do you call it? Motivation to really do my therapy and get to where I could walk good. So, and it really helped. So anyway, I wanted to be sure I did that, and got over that. So
I think that's great. I think this is important to share that, right? Because like you said, it gave you, a reason to like not put that off and then be motivated and to get that healed and stuff like that. What else as far as the anticipation for the trip? And then just because we did have a lot of calls like this and then you guys just asking questions and just wanting to make sure that you were prepared.
Well, passing this on to our children was another thing because they said, "Mom, you have got to be kidding." I said, "No, I'm not." They said, "Well, go for it then."
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they said, "Well, hey, go." So
because
that
Rita, you've traveled a little bit more internationally and stuff like that, but Brenda, this was a big deal for you to jump on a flight and head to Africa.
The farthest I've ever been was to Hawaii. So, and I went there 3 times. So, but that was that's the only time I've ever been out of the continental United States.
That's a long ways, though. I will say.
Yeah.
That flight to Hawaii, you can almost get to Africa in about the same amount of time.
No, it wasn't.
Just about.
It's like 4 hours, 4 hours more to Africa than to Hawaii from Atlanta. So
we went ahead and we went ahead and got the business class seats, so we'd be more comfortable. So, and Melissa helped us with that. So that was very good.
Melissa is the queen traveling. I'm telling you, because she helped us find discounted seats and all that. And we knew, I knew that we were going to have first class or business class seats because there is no way
neither one of them could sit
to go that far, in a regular seat. So, I mean, if you're young and you can handle that kind of stuff, then that's one thing. But that's a long trip.
Yeah, for sure. So you made that journey, as our listeners probably know, some of the things that we've talked about. You made that journey to Kenya by yourselves. We went to Cairo for a few days. We met you guys in Kenya. So what was that like traveling to a distant country, especially in Africa, by yourselves?
Well, hey, we went straight in, and as soon as, and when we got to, Doha,
let me start right here, Brenda. You guys, Melissa and Scott, y'all had already told us that we needed assistance on our
tickets.
Yeah. The airline
reservation. Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We went ahead and asked for assistance. And when we got to the airport, remember, Brenda, there were about 200 people over in the coach line, and there were 3 people in the
business class line.
Yes.
Those peasants.
So, we went up there and they took our suitcases and everything. And we had our one little carry-on bag. Then they sent us over to get a wheelchair. And that was fantastic even if you're an older person and you don't have a lot wrong with you, but you can't walk that far, you need to ask for assistance because, man, all right, Brenda, you finish telling.
Yeah, I didn't get assistance the first leg, so I walked beside Rita. But by the time I got there, after having had this surgery, it was rough. So I asked for assistance on the way back. So it was, but we walked. But we would get, when you have assistance, it takes you to the front of the line, and I would be walking beside her, because we were together, and we would go right to the front of the line. That was wonderful.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like you said, like if you need it and it will help you out like that, utilize it, right? Because it's super easy to ask for. Like it's part of the service that's provided. You just typically go into the app or to their website and put in your information and just tell them, hey, I need this assistance. The other thing that made me glad about that is that we were like, well, let me say, because sometimes it's confusing, right? In the airport, like then you get off the plane, it's like, okay, where do we go next? That kind of thing. And we didn't have to worry about that with you guys because we're like, oh, they're going to take care of them. They're going to show them where they need to go, where they need to go next. They're going to make sure they get there on time.
Matter of fact, they're going to push her in a chair to get there, right?
Right. And so that just gave us the peace of mind too, right? That, with the connection in Doha. So, yeah.
Yeah. And when we got to Doha, we were very, very thankful that we had that assistance, because when we got off of the airplane, that place is huge.
Yes,
I was just there last week. It is. It's
and not
huge.
Yes. And not knowing where to go. I mean, of course, we could have asked, one of the people, but they were there with those little golf cart things. And we got on there, and then they drove us around and took us to the lounge, and then came back and picked us up and took us to the gate that we needed to be at for our trip into Nairobi from Doha.
So that made it really a lot easier in the traveling. It's because you didn't have to try to figure that part out of where do I go inside the airport, because they took you right where you needed to go.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's probably something to think about for maybe some of our older travelers. And, if you're going to have these connections and maybe you have a little bit of anticipation or nervousness about it, this is a service that they offer that you can get, and they'll take you right where you need to go.
Yes.
Well, it did help having, the two sisters together, doing their, because it relieved my anticipation, that anxiety. Yeah. Because it was, yes. But they took, and when we got to Nairobi, it was late at night or early in the morning or whatever. I can't even remember, but it was
like midnight,
and our driver was right there.
The McKay Africa people,
yes,
they were right there. When we got off of the airplane, we walked into the building, and they were right there, and they had a sign with our name on it and everything. And so that relieved all of that anxiety as well.
Right.
So the way that they take care of you over there was just totally amazing.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about, you're now in Nairobi. You've made it there. Our friends from McCabe picked you up. They take you to where you were staying. We had found you some lodging because you guys wanted to go a couple of days ahead of time to make sure that you could adjust to the time frame, and that you wouldn't be, battling jet lag, in the first few days of the safari. So tell us a little bit about, because you guys did some really fun and unique activities that we didn't do with you, right? So before we met up with you in Nairobi, you guys did a little bit of sightseeing on your own.
It was wonderful.
Well, we didn't do it by ourselves. Of course, we asked the people at McKay Africa if they could recommend, some excursions for us to do while we were there for those 2 days. I'm really glad that we did that. I'm glad that we went ahead of time because it helped tremendously.
We slept that whole first day.
When
we don't advise that as a way to defeat jet lag, but we're glad it worked for you.
By the time we got to the hotel, it was like 2 a.m.
Yeah, and you go straight to bed. Yeah,
and we had our first experience with the driver, which turned out to be one of our other drivers that took us on safari as well.
Yes, right.
But I said to him, how long is it going to take to get to our hotel? And he looked at me and he had the most serious look on his face. And he said, about 4 hours. And my eyes got as big as saucers. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And he just died laughing.
So we talked a little bit about Sammy on last week's episode. And he was quite a jokester.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was great.
And so that's when I told him, I said, I see now. You're a jokester, and you're going to try to, get one over on us. And so we just fell in love with him, because he was like that. He was making a lighthearted joke kind of thing, and then he also. Well, let me back up. When we got to the hotel, it was around 2 a.m. So we needed to go to bed and sleep, But what we didn't know is that we would sleep into the next day as well. So it was I don't know.
It was late. It was late evening when we
it was like 2
p.m.
Yeah, 2 p.m. by the time we got up out of bed.
So the first day you would recommend really nothing, right? Hang out at the place, eat, rest.
It worked out well for us. Some people may not, but it worked out well for us.
Yeah, and especially with the time of the day. So you always have to think about the time of the day that you're arriving and stuff like that. But at least to give you, you would have been, if you only have had that one day and then you're starting on safari the next day, it would have been a lot rougher.
Well, talk to us about that second day, though, when went out on your excursions.
Yes.
Sammy, again, came and picked us up the next morning. We had already prearranged that we were going to go to 2 places. So the Giraffe Center, it was wild. I mean, you get to be up front and personal with all of the giraffes. And their long tongues, they want you to feed them. They come up there because they know that the people have food.
So this is a very special giraffe, though. This is the Rothschild giraffe.
Right.
And it is near extinction.
Yes. And they have a way that they're...
like a breeding program.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, but it's not a draft, so it's not something that we would have seen later on, right? So this was your opportunity to see those, those Rothschilds giraffes.
There are 3 types of giraffes: the Rothschild, and then there's 2 other ones, and I can't remember them.
The reticulated,
yes,
and the Maasai.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm glad you remembered.
So we talked about this in the previous episode. We went in knowing nothing about animals, and then after a few days, you hear a few things, and then you would have been convinced that we were all experts.
No, but you have better memory than I do.
Sometimes I have my moments.
But the giraffes would just, you hold out a little, because they give you little food things when you go in, and a little bowl, a little dish. and you feed them. And it was so much fun because they come right up to you and they have that big tongue out.
Did you give any a kiss?
No, I didn't get that close.
And then the other place that you guys went to that day was...
Oh, that was fantastic.
It was what's the name of it?
Oh,
Sheldrick.
gosh. The what?
Sheldrick Wildlife.
Sheldrick. Yes. And it is the reserve for baby elephants. And oh my gosh.
They take bottles. They feed them with bottles.
And then they have like leaves from like a limb with leaves on it that they spread out around where the people are standing, and the elephants go around and they get close enough where you can just reach out and touch them. You can, I thought, okay, I'm going to pet one of these elephants, but I was shocked. The hide of that elephant was not smooth.
What you expected? Yeah,
No.
They're real wrinkled.
It was. I thought, man, it feels like my skin. Not really, but it was.
And so they basically rescue these baby elephants from. Is it all over? All over Kenya, right?
Yes.
Not just Kenya.
Oh, not just Kenya. Okay.
Yeah, they
all
fly
over Africa.
Yeah, they fly those elephants from. They find them, and they're notified of them, and they go to where they are, and they fly them into this preserve, into Sheldrick. Is that the name of it? I forget. Sheldrick. Yeah, yeah. But the guy that led the, he was one of the guide, not our guide, but the one that talked about elephants. He knew every single one of them, and he knew exactly where they came from and how old they were, and what most of them, the mother was dead or something, but they were all orphans, is what they were, and they were fantastic. Some of them were smaller, and some of them were like older teens, or I guess, because once they get older, they put them into the wild.
Yeah, they try to reintroduce them.
Yes,
into existing herds out in the wild. So,
and that is there in the Nairobi National Park, right? That's actually part of that national park in Nairobi.
Yes,
yes, and I even think the giraffes would go back into the Nairobi National Park at night.
Okay,
come back.
Okay.
That's really strange, but I know that's what they told us, wasn't it, Rita?
Yes.
Yeah.
They had a road that went across from one side of the road to the other side, and the other side would be the national park. But then the giraffes know that there's food.
So they would come back across.
And so they would come back every morning like clockwork, and they don't have a watch.
Right. Yeah.
We have to have an alarm clock. But the
Giraffe Manor is part of that, right?
Yeah, Giraffe Manor is right there. So that the Giraffe Center is right there in Karen, which is where you guys stayed.
Right.
Which is where we met you guys when we got there at Makushla House as well. So,
well, let's move on to the safari, because that was why we were there. Real quick, be honest with us. What were you thinking when we were talking about staying in tented camps? What went through your mind?
I couldn't picture it.
I told you, I said, there is no way I can go on a trip where I have to sleep on the ground. I can't get off of a chair very well, much less get down on the ground and sleep and try to get up. So, but it wasn't anything like that.
When we started looking at pictures, we saw that it was, we kind of realized what it was, because when you look at the pictures from the glamping and safaris. It showed a lot more. So we kind of got over our fear of being in a tent.
These were not your average, ordinary Coleman tents, were they?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
These were definitely glamorous tents.
They all had showers, and the bathroom was just like what you'd have in a motel or something, so hotel. But they treated you like, oh my gosh, it was, the food and the restaurants were fantastic. It was marvelous. It really was. Better than anything I have here. So
I think the food on this trip was some of the best food that we've ever had. I mean,
it was, yeah,
easily.
Yes.
Yeah. Even the breakfast we had out on the safari when we were, those were fantastic. They took care of us.
Yes, for sure. So
they called it bush breakfast.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't quite sure exactly what a bush breakfast would be. But man, it was nothing like I had in my mind.
We told the story last week, Rita, of when we were at Elephant Bedroom Camp, and they came and said, "What would you like on your, bush breakfast?" And you said, "Oh, some coffee would be good, and maybe a Danish."
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And they were like, "Well, we think we have some biscuits." And you're like, "Yeah, biscuits, that's great." And I was like, "Wait a minute, slow your roll. Biscuits or cookies here."
Right. We want more cookies. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So the next day I told them, give us more of those biscuits the next time.
Yes, because that was something that they would bring when our wake up call, right? We needed to get up early. They would bring that coffee, to the tents and have a few of the little biscuits to kind of get you going. And like y'all said, great for taking medicine and supplements and things like that, for sure. So 2 episodes back, we went into great detail for our listeners for the different, like talking about all the different kinds of camps, the differences between them and stuff like that. So if you haven't listened to the episode, go back and listen to that. Do you, each of you, do you have a favorite out of those 4 places that we stayed?
Samburu, I think.
The Samburu, the Elephant Bedroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Okay. Yeah. Rita?
Yeah, I think Elephant Bedroom was probably the most favorite. But each one of them had just a little bit different, something unique to that place.
Yes.
And so they were all so good. But I guess if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Elephant Bedroom.
That's so interesting because I have a favorite and Scott has a favorite that we mentioned there, and y'all's favorite is different. But we talked about, and it was good. I mean, you don't want to move around too much, but it was good to experience different things, right? You're there to get a different experience, to go to those different parks as well and, experience the people. So that's super interesting. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you could do wrong any of these places where we stayed.
No, absolutely. And we also mentioned that McKay did a great job of communicating that, hey, if you can put these guys close, to the common area, to the restaurant as well, to the parking, that would be super helpful. And they did an amazing job.
And the one time that they did, and the one time that they didn't have anything close, they always the guide always picked us up. That was what was the name of the
Amboseli.
Ollie. Yeah.
Tortilla.
Yeah. Tortilla. Yeah. Tortilla's camp and Ollie did that for us. And but they accommodated, right? So just communicating and letting them know. And we just thought that was a fabulous. And we didn't mention it, but just going back, not to go in great detail, but also Sammy was with you guys at those other experiences and he helped you guys and helped you, Rita, with, wheelchair, even though it was not super suitable, right, for a wheelchair, but he went over, y'all felt like over and beyond, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was afraid he was going to hurt himself, he was pushing me in a wheelchair. up and down to see the elephants. And
yeah, it was not not a paved area.
Yeah, it was dirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was rough. But
And I think that got us even more excited because we were already, communicating with you guys, making sure you were there and stuff like that. And y'all were already like, oh my gosh, Sammy is fantastic. And, he's done this for us already. And, just helping us where, mobility might be an issue. So, that made us super, excited to get there. And of course to meet Sammy too.
So how did the safari experience compare to what you thought it might be?
It blew my mind.
Too. It was better than anything I could have anticipated.
Here in America, we have zoos and you have Disney World that has the animal safari kind of thing, But in Africa, I don't know how to explain how different it is, but it was just something that I'll never, ever forget.
You can tell right now that it conjures an emotion in your mind.
Yes,
it does.
And, when we were there, like at the zoo, when animal has a baby or whatever, they kind of keep it away from everybody for a while. But over there,
oh my,
you go and see these animals. And I mean, it's beyond belief that you could be that close to a lion and her cub. Just even thinking about it now, it just blows my mind.
That part probably was my favorite, was the baby lions that would come over close. I mean, we would be that close to the lion. And I've heard some of my friends that saw it says, weren't you afraid? The window was open. You don't have a window. No.
The only time that I was really afraid was when we had our bush breakfast with Richard.
Yeah.
And the elephants came down to below us at the water. And that one elephant was very, very curious. And he started coming up, or she came up to where we were. And Brenda got on the wrong side of the truck. And so Richard finally had to say, Miss Brenda, you need to come over on this side. But she was just standing there with her iPad taking pictures. And
I was loving it. I was loving it.
Richard, that elephant won't charge, will it? And he said, well, I'm not sure what it's going to do. And when he said that, I was like, Brenda, get over here.
I'm glad y'all didn't see the video that I saw the other day where the elephant actually picked up the truck and tossed it.
No.
Was it over there?
I don't know where it was, but it was definitely on a safari somewhere. But there was signs and the driver wasn't paying attention. And the elephant was like, you need to get out of here. And he just stayed there. And finally it came in with its trunk, picked it up, on the front bumper and just tossed it over.
Well, they told us sometime or another, one of the guides told us that they have to go through training, the guides do, so that they can
know the signs.
Watch for all those signs, that animal is getting irritated. So we need to move. So, I was really thankful for the guides.
Yes.
All of our guides were really good about recognizing that. And, there were a couple of times when they're like, we should just go on, right?
Yeah.
We've stayed long enough. We should probably move on at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in our last episode, Scott and I mentioned to people, you want to go see the Big Five. but don't like bank your whole safari on that, right? You might want to see a kill or something like that, but don't let that be, oh, if I don't see this, right, I'll be disappointed. What is the one thing that you wanted to see?
For me, I wanted, before we, went out, I wanted to see the male lion. That big mane. I just wanted to see that. And then, of course, I knew we would see a lot of the other, like the elephants and
zebras.
And zebras and all that. I figured we would see all of those, but I wanted to see the male lion. And boy, did we ever get to see a beautiful male lion.
Yeah.
I was afraid because it seems like it was one of the last things that we saw. And so I was afraid that I wasn't going to get to see that, but they didn't let us down. That's for sure.
Sammy delivered on that one in the Mara, didn't he?
Yes.
My favorite picture of all of them is the lion with the baby that's under its legs, and and the baby lion is looking up at its mother with all, it looks like it's love, and I thought, oh my gosh, that was my favorite picture of all of them, I think.
That one, and the other one that I absolutely just adore is the monkeys.
Oh yeah, the monkey.
The mama with the monkey on its back.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
And a couple of those are just thanks to having like a DSLR or a camera where you're just like doing that constant shutter, right? And getting like all their different motion and things like that. So that was neat.
The one too with the baby lion that would go from its mother. It would, we got a video of it going from its mother and coming down to where our vehicle was. And it would come real close to the vehicle, then it would go back to its mother, and then it would come back. That was I guess maybe
somebody asked me that I was showing the pictures to. They said, could you just, open the door and reach out and get that cub? And I said, you want to have that lion charge you?
Yeah.
She looked like she was taking a nap over there for every once in a while, but
exactly.
she could be over there in
a second.
Yeah. They're fast.
Yeah. That's so interesting because a lot of the things that y'all have mentioned, we actually mentioned the last episode, and it was amazing to see how many babies we saw and then how many babies we saw just nursing, right? They would go over to mom and nuzzle and nurse for a second. And then it was just like, oh my goodness.
The baby elephants. We saw so many it was just all of them had babies almost, even
the rhinos.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Yeah. That was I love that.
That to me was the ultimate, getting to see the interaction between the mamas and the babies of all different species of the animals. And it was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That we could be right there and see all of that.
I guess much better though when you're the predator and not the prey.
Yeah.
The babies of the prey, they didn't have such a loving relationship.
No,
and
that was sad to see that.
It was like I told Brenda, it was a cool thing to see how that's how they got their food, but at the same time you feel bad for the mama of that baby or even for that animal to have to lose its life. But that is a fact of life.
Yeah.
That's how they survive.
Any special memories that you want to share? I know one of the things that we did, you guys called me about, maybe 5 months out from leaving on the trip. You're like, hey, That hot air balloon.
Yes. Initially, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get into the basket of a hot air balloon. So I asked you about that because I knew that you said that you and Melissa were going to do a hot air balloon ride. And, I've done like a hot air balloon, but it was tethered. You get in and then they let you go up a little ways and then you come back down. But nothing, I've never like ridden from one place and then end up in another place. Brenda and I talked about it and I said, we should try it at least, And so I think I was at Brenda's house. And so we called you guys and asked you about it. And you said, I can find out, how you get in and, do they have a place on the basket where it's accessible for.
Let's just say we were all very ignorant.
We were wrong.
Those.
Yes, we were.
That was so
Wasn't
funny.
anything like we had anticipated.
No.
Because I think we had said, oh, yeah, they'll have, stairs or something where you can crawl over into the basket.
Yeah.
Never did we know that we were going to get in spaceship launch mode in the basket laying down sideways.
We laughed. That is the, what?
my
We
God.
laughed more then than any time. We laughed a lot, but that was so funny.
And that's one of those things. You've gotten up at 4 a.m. You've paid for it. You're like, well, it is what it is, right? Get in.
Right. Get in. All right.
We'll figure it out.
Right.
I love it. Love it.
It was, we didn't have time to be scared either, was the thing about it, because by the time we got in it and the way maybe y'all told them how it worked, but by the time we got in there and got me in, I guess, was the rough one.
I don't know if we did. I don't think we went into great detail because we had talked a long time. So just Scott mentioned we had to get in launch mode. So just explain what that looked like real quick.
The basket was actually laying on its side, and when you look in the basket, there's a little bench that went across, and so you had to get in like you were sitting on that bench, but you're laying on your back.
And we have some great pictures of that, by the way.
Video, yeah.
Oh, do you?
Oh my God.
Well, the funniest one is Rita getting out of it. So
yeah. Well, because then they mentioned, so it's, and we didn't even know for sure. It's 16 people. There's 4. Right. It's like a rectangle and it's divided into 4 quadrants. So there's 4 people in each. There is a bench where you could sit down, which I know you were thankful for that, Rita. So, cause it is an hour flight and you had the pilot, and he said we may also have to lay on its side when we land too, right? It's just This is what they have to do.
And it'll drag us along.
Yeah, and we did, it had to drag us along. That's true. So he did not like the way the wind was. It just went straight down. But then you were like, oh, how am I going to climb out of it?
Yes.
We're going to get these old legs off of this.
But then the guys that were helping to bring the basket back down, they were right there and they helped me over the side. And I was so tickled by that. I couldn't even hardly help them to get me out of the basket. But if anybody ever has a chance to do hot air balloon ride, they need to take the chance.
Yeah.
Because that was fabulous.
Yeah.
We had so much fun, and we were able to see so much from the air, that we might not have been able to see when we were riding around. Like
the hippos.
Yeah. That's what I was fixing to say. That huge pod of hippos that were, I don't know if they're called pods, but that's what
playing around in the water.
Yes.
It's a school of hippos.
Okay.
But it was absolutely, that was another one of those, I guess, bucket list items, and to think that we got to do that in Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you guys decided to do that, because I know one of the things you had said, or at least Scott said to me, is, oh, they want to do this. Like, they asked, is it something romantic just for you guys? And, thankfully, I mean, we wanted you to do it with us, but yeah, it was like 14 other, 12 other strangers, and we would have just been like so disappointed if you hadn't gone and experienced that with us. So glad that you did. And I know that you guys are too.
Oh, yeah, we were worried because, I mean, part of this was your anniversary trip too. So we didn't want to interfere with y'all, taking time for just you two.
I think we've taken like 10 anniversary trips this year, to be honest.
But that was the other thing. I mean, I totally agree with you. It was almost like for that 1 hour, it was just like, could you comprehend? I'm in a hot air balloon and I'm flying over the Masai Mara in Kenya, and we had beautiful weather, and, being able to see those animals and see the other balloons in the sky. And it was just one of those, I can't believe I'm actually doing this.
Oh my God.
Oh, yes. I love sunrises and sunsets. I have some of those. Every time we had a sunrise or a sunset, I have great pictures.
Well, just about every day you got to see a sunrise and a sunset.
Sunset, yes, we did. It was wonderful.
So let me ask you guys this question. Any regrets about taking this trip?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
If I had not done it, I would do it again. I don't know if I will do it again, just to do it again, but there no regrets. Absolutely none. I started to say I want to go again, but I don't know. A long, tiring trip.
Yeah.
When you're not used to going a lot. And it was some days it was a little bit gruesome.
No, we didn't mention that too. I mean, it was for us, right? You're getting up so early, and some days you have travel in the middle, and you literally was like, okay, it's 9:00, but I'm going to sleep because the morning's going to come early. And
right.
Yeah. So it was for us too, not just for you guys.
Well, Rita,
I'm glad to hear that.
Rita and I were, we decided not to go on one of the safari, went out into the bush, but one morning, because we were just so tired, we just thought, well, we better just stay in. So we let, so that was, but it was just only because we were just tired. So tired, I could not do it again that morning.
And that was the one where we saw the male lions that just killed the wildebeest. So
yes. Yeah, we didn't.
Probably the female killed the wildebeest, and the male lions were enjoying the feast. But
the feast.
And it's interesting that you say that, is because that was one of the tips that we had, is that we, and some of the feedback that we would have for people, is that we did need either one morning or one afternoon, somewhere in the middle like that, where it was just like, we need a little more time to either sleep in or to, something like that. I mean, you don't want to, you go all that way, right? You spend all this money.
As much, right.
You want to see as much, but you also don't want to just like completely wear yourself up. And that's true. Like you have that option to say, okay, we can't go, or we don't want to go. So that's awesome. Yeah. So besides that, what tips would you have to share for anyone who is thinking about doing a trip like this, has a trip planned, or as they're planning a trip like this?
Or maybe even if just the opportunity presents itself, because you guys hadn't really thought about doing this. It was an opportunity came across, and you had to say yes or no.
Yes. I would encourage anybody who has the opportunity and can afford it to do it. Don't put it off, because just like with me and my husband, died, and we never got the chance to do a trip like this. And so if you have the opportunity and the means and everything, then you need to do it. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime. That's for me and Brenda probably.
Yeah.
This was the one time that we were able to do it. You got anything to add?
No, I think I've got friends that have been more than once. They've been at least twice. Well, actually, children of friends of mine that I talked to before this, and they would go as much as they possibly could. They would go every year if they had the money to do it because they love it that much. So the safari is just absolutely fantastic, and it's a great thing to do.
And the thing about that, the safari trip, is that everything is planned out so perfectly.
Right.
Where you're going to stay, what you're going to have to eat, when you're going to go on safari. The guides are well trained on where to go to find the animals in the park and all of that. So I just couldn't have even imagined anything any better than what we had. I don't know how you could top it.
Either.
I don't know how you could improve even, except for, just let me sleep for a little bit longer, please.
Yeah. And the other complaint is there's too much food and it's too delicious, and these desserts are so good.
You're right.
Every meal.
I think I was actually surprised. Maybe it was because we were going so much, but I had only gained 2 pounds. Only gained 2 pounds.
I didn't gain any. So that was, hey.
Well, thank you guys, for coming on and just sharing your experience and, that kind of inspiration to others to say yes to that trip of a lifetime. And definitely, this is one of the greatest memories that Melissa and I will have in our hearts and with others for a really, really long time. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say, is just now having that, common experience with you guys, right? You can show people pictures, you can tell people stories, but it's not the same as having that same experience together.
Right.
And I loved it when Melissa flew the airplane.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Will asked us a question about that today because he was listening to the podcast that actually came out today on that. And he was like, Mom, what kind of airplane was it?
I said, let me send you the video. I said, it's 4 minutes long, but
yeah, I know.
No, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. That was it.
Scott actually told you what it was.
I did. I was like, I read it off the little card and I was like, when we get ready to start the Sunshine Travelers airline, this is what we need to buy.
Yeah. So I'll share that video on social media and I can link it in the show notes that was fun. And that was a fun surprise experience for us.
Yeah.
Well, we love you guys and we will see y'all at Christmas.
Okay.
Yay.
Sounds good.
We found that when you're traveling, there are 2 things that are essential to a smoother, stress-free journey: fast and easy ways to charge your devices to stay connected, and effective and lightweight packing solutions to stay organized on the go. And for us, Apika checks both of those boxes. The Apika brand is known for their highly rated travel adapters, and now they're expanding their travel gear offerings with incredibly lightweight, waterproof, and tear-resistant packing cubes that are crafted from 100% ultra-lightweight nylon material. Their packing cubes have a double zipper system, one for closing it and the other that allows you to compress the extra air out of the cube, which will save you up to 60% more space in your suitcase when packing. This was especially important to us on the safari when we were only allowed 1 large duffel suitcase for the entire trip. When we travel, we just take the compression packing cubes out of our suitcase, put it directly in the drawer, and then I just pull the clothes we need out of the compression cubes. We've been using packing cubes for years and always sing their praises for staying organized, especially in traveling to multiple destinations in the same trip. which if you know us, we usually do. Right now, Apika is offering our community a 30% off limited time discount with our special code on their brand new ultra lightweight compression packing cube set of 4. These make fantastic Christmas gifts for your favorite travelers and for yourself. Go to sunshinetravelers.com/pack to learn more and get 30% off your purchase for a limited time with our code APIKA30OFF.
Melissa, the idea behind this episode was saying yes to the trip of a lifetime when the opportunity presents itself. And I'm sure I know the answer for you as well. But for me, I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to share this trip with Brenda and Rita. The fun, the excitement, all of the anticipation as we were going through all of the plans, all of this is just something that will stay a memory in my heart for forever.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just like being on, the calls that we would have with them from time to time, just about planning. And, we talked about packing for months and months and, getting them set up. And you mentioned, I think, a little bit, you're so proud of them for getting their eSIM set up and their WhatsApp so that they could, and just the time that we spent ahead of the trip, together, planning for it. And I think that's a big part of, doing a trip and then doing a trip with other people. But then, I guess also like myself getting to have the experience, but then also watching you and you, me, but then also for us to get to watch them, not just the safari part, but just, trying lots of new foods and just having experiences on travel that maybe that we don't think about sometimes, that when you travel with people who don't travel as much as you do, and just, getting to see the excitement and the joy and watching somebody else have those travel experiences is really special.
Yeah, it was really funny because we would have calls with them, like you said, and, I think sometimes it was a simple question, but then we would end up on the phone with them for hours, just talking about the trip. And like I said, the anticipation was real there. And so, those are just memories that we will always cherish about this trip, just almost as much as being on the trip with them.
Yeah, for sure. And, I've read something long time ago about the value of, always having a trip planned, always having something like that to look forward to, and the joy and the excitement that brings as well. And so I think that played into a big part of this. And then just to the memories that we now share, right? I mean, it's one thing to share your stories and your pictures and your videos, but when you experience that directly, right, with another person or with other people, it's just a different level of.
Yeah, I think back to the story Rita was telling of when we were on the bush breakfast and Brenda was over on the other side of the truck and the elephant was coming up and Brenda had her iPad out and was videoing this elephant coming at her. And finally, Rita was like, and even Richard was like, I think you need to come over on this side of the truck.
Yeah. And it's funny that stuck out to them as well, the way that had, been such a memorable moment like it had for us.
The travel insurance you're looking for isn't insurance. Unplanned incidents are rare, but can crop up when you travel. That's why we want you to have the most robust travel protection for your next adventure. When a travel emergency arises, traditional travel insurance may not come to your aid, and a medical evacuation can cost up to $300,000. The cost when you have a Global Rescue membership is $0. That's why when the unexpected happens, you want the leader in rescue, evacuation, and medical advisory behind you. You want Global Rescue. Visit sunshinetravelers.com/global rescue to learn more. I agree. Anything else that, comes to mind from this adventure? We're wrapping up. This is the third part of the 3-part series. Anything else that just, stands out that you want to add before we close out this episode?
I think from the very beginning, when we first started talking about this with them, one thing that they had mentioned was this is something that we would have loved to have done with our husbands. And probably especially Rita, right? She said, oh, this is something that her husband, Jerry, that they had talked about, and just not having that opportunity. And so then when this opportunity presented itself to them, because it's not something that they would have done, like just gone out and just, seeked it out or gone if we hadn't have gone. So this time around to say, okay, we didn't have that opportunity with them, maybe some regret, but now we're going to seize that opportunity. And that from the get-go, right? That was like one of the very first things that we even talked about. Oh, that would have been nice to go. Okay, well, why not now? Not letting that opportunity slip away.
Well, I can't think of any better way to round out this episode. Melissa, before we do go, I do want to just ask you, is there anything on the Antarctica trip that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So if you have been listening to probably most of our episodes, I think at some point we've mentioned it, or a lot of our episodes, we have talked about probably almost from the very beginning that we want to do a group trip to Antarctica. And we are getting super close to announcing the details about that and getting all that finalized. And so this is a perfect opportunity that if you have an inkling in your mind that you would like to go to Antarctica, and it's not something where you're like, oh, someday, or I'm going to seek this out. It's like you will have an opportunity, right? It will be, here's the dates, here it is. You can go with us. And the theme of this trip, this will be your opportunity to say yes, right? Here's the dates, here it is. We are going. We're taking some other people. We do have a few people who are already like, yes, we're definitely going. And so if Antarctica is something that has been on your bucket list, then this will be a perfect opportunity for you to say yes and to come with us. And so what we're looking at is February of 2026. So you'll have a little more than a year to get it all planned. Details are coming out soon, but we want to give you an opportunity if that is something where you're like, I really would be interested in going, but I'd really like some more information. So there'll be a link in the show notes that you can fill out, just give us your name and email. And then as soon as those become available, you will be basically first on the wait list. Doesn't obligate you or anything like that, but will give you first to have the information. There will only be a limited number of spots. One thing that's very important to us on this trip is to have do a smaller ship so that we can have the experience of doing Antarctica. So if that is something that is at all of interest to you, click the link in the show notes. And you can also email either one of us, Scott@sunshinetravelers.com, Melissa@sunshinetravelers.com, and then we can send you that. And you can just say, hey, I'm interested. Here's my email address. That works too. And then you will be the first to just get the information and see it's something that you would like to do. But yeah, if that's something that you would like to say yes to and have that opportunity to visit Antarctica in your life, it's definitely high on our bucket list. And so we're super excited to announce the details of that.
Yeah. And if you listen to Brenda and Rita, they talked about that we made sure that all of the details were taken care of ahead of time. And this is your opportunity. All you got to do is say yes. And we're taking care of the rest. As we wrap up this episode, we hope you feel inspired to say yes when the chance for a life-changing adventure comes your way. Remember, it's not just about the destination. It's about the stories you'll create, the people you'll meet, and the way you'll see the world and yourself differently. Life is too short to wait for the perfect moment. So when that opportunity presents itself, grab it with both hands. You never know when the trip of a lifetime will come knocking, but when it does, make sure you're ready to answer. What is that one adventure that you said yes to and it turned into the trip of a lifetime? Email me, Scott@sunshinetravelers.com, and let me know. We are always inspired by your travel adventures. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found some inspiration to help you with your travel journeys. If you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, it would be greatly appreciated. Your 5-star reviews help us get discovered by others and possibly featured on your favorite platform. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast to get notified of new episodes as they are released. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. Remember that as travelers with one L, most importantly, please share it with your friends to help them catch the travel bug. You never know, they may become your greatest travel companion.